And the groom has had no input whatsoever. It does actually kind of show in the weddings. So to have them both involved it's the perfect thing.
And I think it's sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
What I was going to say is I think it's also so important to reflect on just why people still have weddings. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that our industry gets a lot of bad rap, and a lot of people say, the white wedding is unnecessary, and people are spending so much money on weddings. Why would they do that? It's totally not worth it. Well, I'd love to argue, for me, I think that the wedding is one of the most important pieces of your relationship. I always tell brides and grooms, things are different when you get married. And I'll tell this to you too, Julie. Right now you might be like, oh, maybe, I don't know if you live with your fiancé or
we do,
what.
Yes.
But you probably be like, well, it's not going to change that much. We already live together. We're already have this partnership. But when you make it legal and stand up in front of all those people, I'm telling you that your relationship changes. And it absolutely does. And, it really, you start on a whole new journey. And it really is, you're celebrating the journey that you've already gone on to get to this point where you're now married. But once you get married, it's the beginning of something entirely new, and your relationship does change. And we really focus on the transition from going from single to married. And even if you've been living with your fiancé beforehand, the motions that you go through in planning a wedding are so important. In tribal cultures, they had entire rituals around a couple uniting in marriage. Whereas in modern day society, it's kind of become all about the party. But we have to really look and see that planning the party and planning the ceremony is absolutely necessary for us to go through as a man and woman getting married, going from single to married, because we have to take those steps in order to go through the transition. A lot of times when people just get married really quickly, they skip over that transition, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I'm married. And it just kind of clicks for them maybe a couple months later, and they're like, what have I done? Whereas when you go through this lengthier process of actually planning a wedding, you're actually taking your mind through and emotionally through, okay, I'm making this transition where maybe I'm going to change my name. It's not just going to be, Ciara by herself anymore. It's Ciara and Simon now. I have to share more. I have to, file with someone my taxes. We can consider having children together. And, I have to share holidays with his family now. You go through these transitions, whereas when you're just living together, you can still, it's a lot easier to walk away. But when you've stood up in front of all your friends and family and you've signed that legal document, it's a lot harder to walk away. I'm not saying that people want to, but believe me, there are times in your marriage when you will need to look back on those pretty wedding videos and pictures and say, you know what, those two people in those pictures were really happy that day. And you need to be able to look back on that memory of that day and go, okay, you know what, I was really happy that day. I really loved this person that day. I've got to figure out how I can get back there. And, I loved him then. Let's figure this out. But it really, I think, is the basis for a great marriage are the feelings that you felt on that wedding day and going through planning that wedding together, going through that transition from single to married.
Well said. I can relate to all of it. Well, the part that happens before we get married. So thank you for sharing that. And especially because you talked about the wedding, how it should be a reflection of your personality. I'd love to get a glimpse into more of both of your personalities, since I already like what I hear and what I've read online. Can you share with us a little bit about what made your wedding so reflective of who you are?
Sure.
From any small detail to anything larger?
Well, we had our wedding right when we first started our company. It was actually kind of the inspiration for beginning our company. I've been doing events for a long time, but this was kind of my first wedding. But we really wanted it to be unique. We had our wedding in Banff, Alberta, which is like a beautiful little mountain town right in the heart of the Rockies. And We were actually out there for New Year's, and Simon and I were living in Toronto at the time, which is in eastern Canada. And when I turned, because Calgary is my hometown, when I turned the corner, Simon had never been to Banff before. He saw the mountains and said, "This is where we have to have our wedding." Because it's just so, so beautiful. And we love the idea of a destination wedding where you make it a real vacation for all of your guests. So a lot of my family lives in Ireland, my dad's side, and a lot of Simon's family and friends live in England. So we really made it a whole week of fun so that they could really take a vacation and come and be with us. And it was really about the experience that our guests would have. So we did things like we planned a welcome party at my parents' house in Calgary, a big caravan of people out to Banff, set up the room blocks so that everyone could stay at the same hotel or within walking distance of each other. We took people rafting, and whoever didn't go rafting went on a sightseeing tour with my dad. Then we all met at a Greek restaurant. None of us are Greek, but we had this big Greek banquet where we organized the welcome dinner, and they smashed plates around us and fed us ouzo. It was crazy. And then we had the next night we had a great luncheon at a popular Canadian restaurant called Earl's, where we had pizzas and margaritas with our bridal party so they could get to know each other. Then we had our rehearsal at the Catholic Church out in Banff, and then a big catered barbecue that was down by the riverside. And we actually had our photographer come for this kind of rehearsal barbecue so that she could take individual pictures of some of our guests so we could send them to them afterwards.
Wow.
Because, again, it was about that guest experience. And just showing people why we really love this area of the country so much. And then the next day we had the wedding, which was done in a Catholic church, even though Simon's not Catholic. When my dad asked, when Simon asked my dad, "Can I marry Ciara?" What did Dad say, Si?
He said, "Yes, but there's only one thing I have to ask from you," and it was a deal breaker. If I'd have said no, I wouldn't be married today. He said that you have to get married in a Catholic church.
Wow.
And so I'm not one to hold religions to, the letter of the law and all of this stuff, and I'm a very open person, open-minded. So I said, you know what, honestly, yeah, okay. And her dad and I compromised. Instead of a full Mass, we would have an abbreviated Mass. But for me, that really wasn't a problem, and I loved Ciara. For me, I just wanted to get married. If I had to get married standing waist deep in minus 20-degree water, if that was his request, I would have done that. And to bring everything back to like the personality thing, Ciara and I travel a lot. We're really adventurous. We like to try new things. When I go to, I was in Turks and Caicos last year speaking, and I went to a pizza place on site and found the weirdest thing I could possibly eat on a pizza. So I had conch pizza. So when we did the Greek restaurant, even though neither of us are Greek, it was to introduce, because we like to try new things, it was to introduce all of our guests to maybe a new set of food or a new palate taste that they hadn't really, experienced beforehand. And we're pretty adventurous too, so that was the part of the whitewater rafting that tied in with our personality was, let's go try something pretty crazy. Because a lot of people don't get out and go whitewater rafting.
That's true.
Well, and by the time we got to our wedding, our guests were so bonded. It was like the wedding was like a full-on family reunion, even though some people had only met each other 3 days beforehand.
Wow.
So that was really important to us. And we did everything in hot pink and black, and this was 5 years ago now, and that was not a popular wedding color back at that time. But everyone was talking about these hot pink dresses, wandering around Banff because everyone saw us. So it was, we kind of have like a rock and roll style